Hello, everyone. Good day and welcome. Thank you for joining me for this weekly streaming. I was having a double echo there with. I'm testing a few things with Twitch and others. And if you're listening to the actual live stream, I'm trying to get some music in the background. I'm not even sure if it's going to show up, but if it does, let me know. So thank you for joining me. I'll be doing some live streaming on the Uno platform. Like I'm doing every Tuesday, working on a WebAssembly application that's called the Uno SkiaSharp Fiddle, and a few other things depending on what's coming up. And we're going to be releasing very soon the Uno platform 3.7 release with quite a few additional things that we've added and bug fixes. You'll get some updates that are coming up soon in our blog, and on GitHub. So with regards to the Azure Static Web App that we've been developing here, that is showing up the SkiaSharp content here. We've been trying to get all this running properly with having Monaco on the side and SkiaSharp running here with syntax highlighting. Like when I compile this, so I compile locally all the code that's available in that page, and then I get all the results at the bottom, giving me all sorts of nice feedback here and others. And last week we added bars, and the idea behind that update was to be able to store the value and the location of those two bars and try to bring it back when we're restarting the app. So if we go back to this application, we're trying to also do another thing, and that's one of the interesting things that I got last week about this. It was the fact that we're using Azure Static Web Apps, and the idea behind this was to be able to avoid having the issue of when I'm typing here something like test, and I wanted to do something like sample slash I don't remember what that one is. It's called I don't remember the name, but let's say it's called a default, for instance. I wanted to be able to get that path here and not have the app fail. So that's called fallback redirection, and it's something that was actually documented on the website from Azure Static Web Apps by multiple versions, and that's something that we can actually change to get running properly. So to do this, we have to just add a file that's called staticwebapp.config.json. I'm just going to open up the file here, the solution, and that file has to be located at the root of the app. And you basically say, if anything that doesn't match the application run, the path of the application running, then you fall back to index.html with some exclusions. Like if you can put, for instance, the path to, let's say, CSS file, and others. If they do fail, you may not want to redirect. So I'm not doing it for now. I just wanted to try out and see what happened there. But that's what's been happening here. So what I want to have now is to show you what that means. So let's say I had the application loaded up here. So if I rebuild the application just to have it with that file loaded up, you remember maybe last time that I was running the application using the SWA command, which is the static web app, a local way of testing applications. So what I'm going to do is pretty much the same thing. So once the application is built, I'm going to go to the output folder, which is in that path. So I'm just going to use WSL path and go to the this folder. So I'm in debug, and then I'm gonna start the app, maybe not with too much verbosity. Well, actually, it's not too much verbose, but it gives us an idea of what the application, what the server is actually doing. So serving static content and the configuration that's being used. So it's actually loading up the file that we need here. And when we navigate to that page, then we're going to get the application running, and we can validate that the behavior of the application, including, so this is the bug that I was chasing last week, but including the fact that we can, let's say, set a path here, and it's going to load up the application properly. So we can see that the application is still loading, which is not happening in here when we set something else there. So we don't get the right, we do get the right app being loaded now. So what we can do is, let's say, actually we're gonna do that one first. So let's remove the loading up of the sort of samples. There was the samples, there was a splitter position. So if we skip the restore splitter position for now, we're gonna adjust the fact that we can navigate to a specific page with some specific content. So the thing here is, in Uno, when you're loading up an application, the unlaunched parameters here, there's the E parameter here that contains a set of arguments. The problem is that those arguments are actually just the ending portion of the URL, so the actual arguments. So after the question mark. So in that case, we don't have a question mark. We have an actual URL that's been mapped. So I'm actually not sure if we can remap that. Maybe we can. So let's try to go and find this out. Maybe there's a way to actually rewrite this. So if we go to this in Azure static web apps, maybe there's a way to do that. So that's the fallback here. Oh, that's a blog post for someone else. Maybe there's a way to do that somewhere that's defined here. Maybe that person did that. Let's see. No, not defined here. That's probably something else. Oh, that's UStatic. Sorry, it's not Azure Static Web Apps. It's completely something else. So workflow, configure Azure Static Web Apps. So let's see if we have navigation fallback. We have the fallback here. It doesn't look like we can provide so there's a rewrite, but I don't think we can rewrite to something else. Let's see. That doesn't look like it. Okay, so let's see if in the rewrite parameter, we can have something else. There's a rewrite. Okay. Okay, so there's nothing that specifies how to do this. Maybe it's something that's going to happen at some point, but for now it doesn't seem to be available. So what we're going to do is just going to parse. We're going to parse the URL completely. So to get this, we're actually going to need to write a bit of JavaScript, because we can't. There's no API for now in Uno that allows to get that URL from the address bar here. So we're going to go to Uno, and we're going to find that piece of code that does that in Uno. So if we search in Uno the location of this, so we can search for, if I remember correctly, it's going to be the window manager.ts. So that file is pretty much, well, it's doing quite a few things that are related to the loading up of the application, and splash screen and many other things like measuring elements and others. And we can see here that we have a function that's called find launch arguments, and that method is actually called automatically by Uno to get the parameters. So what's after the question mark, if there's any. Otherwise it returns empty. So what we can do is just basically take the URL that's from here. So maybe not doing exactly this, but pretty close. We get a search to string, so we could probably just do that one for now. So we can do document location.search and then get that URL directly from there. So to do this, when we're inside of Uno, we can, so we're in the main page. We can probably just do that in the loaded page here. So I'm going to make a function that's called try deep link. Okay, so try deep link. Let's do it that way. So to call an actual function, you can just invoke some JavaScript. So you have the Webassembly Runtime. So it's not available in UWP, so we have to switch to WebAssembly here. So Webassembly Runtime, and it's in Uno Foundation, and you got invoke.js, and you can just basically put your JavaScript here, and it's going to return the value of the evaluated string that's here in the browser. So we can put that completely inside of an URL. So let's do browser URL here, and for this we're gonna take the path. So actually, let's do it differently. We're going to do URI.tryParse or try create. It'll be easier that way. Browser. I'm going to validate that the URL is correct. And then we're going to take the path. So in that path, so URI is conflicting with something else. We got to prefix it with system. So it's good because otherwise it's conflicting with the one that's coming from Monaco. So we don't want that one. So the first parameter, there's the URI kind afterwards. It's generally going to be absolute, but let's give it a way to get both of that. And so we have not local path, so we have path and query, but we don't want that one. So we just want the path. So there's a way to get the component, and I would just want the path part, not the query that goes along with it. And for the format, I want something that is, let's go for unescaped. So that's going to be the browser path. So we get browser path, browser path, browser path. There we go. So with this, we just need to split a little bit and get the path to the actual path to that. So we said last week that it would be something like, so we're going to split this in multiple ways. So we could probably just do, either we do a regex, regular expression, or something else. Let's do a regular expression for this one. So we don't need to split anything else. So that would be a match for something that looks like sample slash, and then I'm going to put a named group. So if I remember correctly, or I always forget the path for those. I think it's that way. So maybe if you remember those, I'm never ultra sure about the naming of those. So it will be this. Otherwise, if I don't know how to find those, I think that one does. I think it does the validation of the regular expression if there's any. So it's called sample name, and we're going to match everything that's afterwards, for now at least. So that's it. And the pattern, so that was the input and the pattern. So the browser path is the pattern, is the the string and the patterns here. So I think, yeah, they do. So that's a new cool thing. I don't know which version they added it in, but they're basically syntax coloring the regular expression inside of the browser, inside of the editor. So, and it does validation as well. So it looks like I remembered it correctly. So if is match, actually let's put it, so it's sample match. And then if sample match success, then we're going to navigate to that one specifically. So the idea was to select the right one, which was something that looks like the selected sample here. So we're going to find a specific sample that was available. So I don't remember. I think we did that last week. Try to find which one that would be. Okay, so there was a deep link with that one. So we're going to remove that deep link and navigate not with that deep link parser, but with the other one, so it actually looks better. So we're going to removing that deep linking parsing here and use the other one instead. So let's move that one here. So what we want to match is the sample match group name, which is called sample name here. So sample name. So maybe it's not that. I think it's called groups. There we go. There's probably a dot value there, which is a string, and there's a possible null reference here because it may be empty. That's correct. But for now, yeah, we assume that it's just first, not first or default, because there's always at least one sample available in the list of Skia samples that are available here. Okay. So now we can go and navigate to this and see if that works properly. So we can now, I think I configured properly the inspector URI. So I'm going to go to and put a breakpoint there. And we'll see if the debugger kicks in. It should be kicking in, so we could see if we are seeing the right content. So here the problem is that we're not navigating to the right one, so we don't see anything running here. Oh yeah, there. So we have the actual URI coming in. I don't think the browser early here is going to give some content, but if we move forward a little bit, we should be able to see the different variables that are there. So we're talking about the WebAssembly debugger, something that is still being developed by the .NET team. So sometimes it behaves a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a way better experience pretty soon. Okay, so no, it's not working well for now. So we're just going to cancel that one for now. I was actually downloading something else that we don't need. Okay, so we're just going to be Visual Studio that's not behaving correctly. It was actually showing up one of lots of the stack traces that are coming up from Uno. So you can see all the methods that are coming there and that are loaded up by Visual Studio. So it allows you to go back to some of the elements of the stack trace that are not part of your app, but also coming from the rest of the framework. But it looks like it was downloading something that made it fail. So just going to terminate this one for now and try with another one. Okay, so that's pretty much how you can navigate to a simple page there, and select a specific page from the URL and navigate to that one. So there's that. Just going to be validating that it does what it's supposed to be doing. Otherwise, we should be good. Okay, so that was that. And if I do, I think it was sample sweep gradient. Oh yeah, right. So that one is not working because it's IIS. So I have to run it through the actual application that's available from here. So that's one of the things. It's maybe probably a shortcoming here of the use of the debugger tooling here. So it probably has to have twice. So the one that's using the URL, the available URLs that are part of this. Of static web apps tooling, but also the one that's coming from the URL parameters with a question mark and others. So from now, I think that this folder may have been removed, so it's probably not showing up anything. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So if I do sample / sweep gradient, no, still doesn't do anything. So there's probably something else. Maybe it's doing something else. Okay, so it looks like the routing is doing something funky. So I'm going to take a look at it next week. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to look at today was something that comes from a bug report that comes from Trung 2910, which basically reports that show async is failing with a message that says pointer released event is raising an invalid operation exception. So what we're going to do is take a look at the PR that was opened by this contributor here. And so we can see that he made a few changes inside of content dialog to fix this. But the problem is that there's no way for us to validate that the behavior is the right one. So what we're going to do for this session is to change this PR, actually add some code to the PR that validates that the behavior of this is validating that one properly. So we're going to test all this inside of WebAssembly and make a set of UI tests that validates that behavior. So the bug was defined as follows. So the idea is that if you have a content dialog that is inherited from something else, then you do show async. The dialog will fail instead of a set result with a process the primary button for some reason. So we're going to try to reproduce this first inside of a UI test, and then validate that that the fix that was made is actually fixing the original issue. So I already got that source code here. So we're going to just reset the branch that we have here so that we have the changes that were added there. So we can see all the changes that were added by the contributor. So now we're going to build this application and try to validate that behavior. So what we can do is make sure that we're inside of a UNO target framework. So in the cross-targeting override props file, and then load the solution filter here. So we are in the right set to open the solution. So here we need to go and find the UNO UI WASM only solution filter. So this one basically opens up only the files needed to build the WebAssembly application for the WebAssembly part of UNO, and not the rest. Otherwise, you would be building for way too much. So now what we can do is build this sample application here. Actually, we maybe So one thing that we do generally is create a separate application to validate that. So the thing is that building for the whole sample application makes it a bit too long. So we're just going to make a secondary application for which we can validate and override the application instead of just testing in the sample app. So we're going to do the sample app afterwards and test the UI tests afterwards inside. So let's build a new Uno application that will test this. So we can search for Uno. I think I have the templates installed, otherwise we'll add some. Okay, so we're going to do, so the bug itself is called, so it's a 15702. There we go. And now we're going to reproduce this. So the actual issue was about creating a specific content dialog. So we're going to create one. So we can see here. Okay. So we're going to make a new one. So let's do Uno platform, and I think we have a content dialog here. So let's call it my content dialog. And then that's it for now. We're just going to add some text here. And we're going to just open this and see how that works. Okay, so this is my content dialog. And in my page, I'm going to be putting a stack panel. With a button. A click with xbind so that we don't need to add all the parameters there that are not needed. And when we go to here, and then we're just going to replicate exactly what the issue says. So it's creating this, and so it is show async. So I'm going to do something here that can only be done just in test. No async void, please, in your production applications, because this is something that will most likely break your app, especially if you go on a background thread or on other apps. So in most cases, if you want to do this, you just go to dispatcher. You do so with the dispatcher to ensure that you're running on the actual dispatcher and not something else. But for the test here that we're doing, it's going to be enough. So what we want to do is when the dialog calls hide, then there's going to be a problem. So in here, I can see that the process of the primary button when we're clicking it is supposed to be closing, and that's where the issue should happen. So let's see if that's what's exactly happening. So I'm just going to be putting. I'm going to reduce the build time by disabling the linker for now, because it's not particularly useful for this sample. And we're going to see if we can reproduce this. So I'm wondering if you're listening live, do you hear some music? If you do, or if you don't, please let me know if you're hearing something. It's the first try from what's called the experience. It's called Soundtrack by Twitch, or content that should not provide that should not cause any trouble to. Oh, there we go. With any DMCA problems and others, so that's one way to do it. Okay, so that's the way to do it. So we can see here that was actually closed, and there was a pointer released event, and there was an error that was showing up there. So the problem here is that it happens in set results. So it's a process primary button, and we can probably see if, so we were in pointers, primitives, pointer release. So what I do not know if the actual, let's see if we get the actual result there. So if we are here, so the dialog is returning content dialog result. So let's see if we actually have a result there. We should, because there are tests, there are unit tests and UI tests for those, so there should not be any error there to display to. Shouldn't be any error because the tests are passing. So we're going to see if we're getting the right result. So let's start the app again and see if we get the right results. So we get primary. So that means that the application is behaving properly, but we're still getting an exception in the code behind. So that's going to be a bit problematic to test, because we can't react to exceptions that are happening behind like this. So let's see. So when we're in content dialog, the exception happens. The exception happens in process primary button. So let's see what we have there. Process primary button. And actually, the changes are probably hiding a little bit of the story there. So we're invoking process primary button here in the complete event handler. So that would be this one. So that's something that we're providing as part of the primary button click. And we're invoking probably the hide command here. So we're calling set result. Set result. Oh, that's the hide one. Okay, so that's the one that's available. That's in, it's got process primary button in the complete one. So set result, so it means that we're calling it multiple times. So there are multiple ways to fix this, but the problem is that in general, we try to use try set results to avoid having it, to avoid calling it multiple times, because that's probably the case here. We're calling it multiple times. Content dialog. Prime button click. So the fix here that was called here is that when we're hiding, we don't need to do anything. So we're calling complete. We're calling hide. And hide is doing something else. Oop. Okay. So what we can try is go to the version of the application in GTK to see if it does the same thing. So let's go and see if it does the same thing. So that's going to be an interesting fix to do because it's not something that can be validated from the outside because because there's nothing that shows up. So it's kind of an internal exception that's hidden by hidden from the app by the framework. So what we can do is just go and see what's inside of content dialog here. It's one of the things that is possible if, let's see, download source and continue debugging. So that's one of the nice things about am I searching for the name? Source link. I was just finding that one. So source link is available as part of Uno. So when you're debugging your application using let's say not UWP because there's no Uno there, but Skia or WebAssembly, then you can get access to the source code that's related to the version that is installed. So in this case, that application is actually running already in Uno 3.7, and we can see that I did an F11 inside, so a step into, and I got into the framework's code. And what that means is that I can now go and put some additional breakpoints somewhere else. So if I go and let's say take a look at the hide here for the set result, I'm going to be able to see what happens and why I get two close buttons being called. So if I press the first one, so I get the hide, first hide that's being called here. And then you can see if it's being called a second time. So not that one. It's that one here. Okay, so it was already completed. So that means that it was set to something else before. So let's see if there's another location where we're setting results. So in primary button, so we're, okay, so in hide, we're calling it twice. Okay, so we're calling it at hide and then we're calling it here. So there's a, okay, so that's probably why that happens. So the result is probably set multiple times. So we're calling hide with the result and we're calling set result with the result. So probably there's no need to do some hiding multiple times. So let's see. Calling button one here. So the result that I passed in the hide here is actually being set already. And we're calling it a second time if the hide result was returned true. So, which I find a bit interesting because if it was not canceled, then we set the result. I'm wondering why that code was added in the first place. Because we're calling hide from the primary button. So maybe it was done with an additional change that was there before. So let's go take a look at that, why that code is available. Maybe there's a test already that validates that behavior specifically. Okay, so when we're in primary button, so that code was removed, or it was removed from that PR. So we can restore it back. And still not seeing it. Was it something that was fixed differently? It's the close button, process primary button. Okay. Let me see. Maybe there's something that's curious because it doesn't look like it's the latest. Okay, so let's go to the master for now. Because the source that comes from the application is supposed to be the right one. So if I see a double high here, but it's not in the source that was provided here, maybe there was two modifications made for that PR. I'm not too sure. Ah, there were two commits. Okay, so that's why. Okay, so there were two commits. So that's the reason for this. So let's go try to find out why. There's a reason for why that was added there. So let's blame a little bit. Could be me. It may definitely be me. Okay, so I added that last year. Content dialog can be closed if closing event was cancelled. Okay, so it's a fix for another issue. So hopefully there's something that validates that. So we can go take a look at this and see if there was a test. Yes, there was a test. Okay. So the test was about closing a dialog with the cancel button. Okay, so if we're canceling, then the dialog should not close. So if the button is primary, we're closing. So there's a kind of a there's a change that was needed for that one. So the good thing is that if there's something that's breaking, we'll know about it when fixing that issue because it was added there. Okay, so that's interesting. So there's going to be a need for actually more review from that one because making a test may not be that easy, and validating that the result here is set properly is something different. Okay, so maybe that needs a bit more analysis of that issue, because removing that piece is not enough. Because if we remove that piece, then the test is going to fail because it's not going to set the result properly. Okay, so yep, that's going to be something to validate for next week, and I'll let you know what happened during the analysis for this. Okay, so we can go back to the SkiaSharp Fiddle application, and we're going to add back the validation for the splitters that were added in the application. Okay, so the problem with the splitters is that the location of the splitter was set incorrectly. So I'm going to take a look at what that means here. So we're just going to remove the deep link here because it was doing something funky for now. So the splitter position was not set properly. And last time, I don't know if you remember, if you watched last time, but the position of the vertical split size, if we changed the split size explicitly, then the value was just set at the top without the actual properly set value. So we're going to be changing and see what that means. So the application, we're data binding we're data binding the position of the grid and row definitions here in two-way. And those two are behaving incorrectly. So what I do not know is if we change the position of the splitter, does it reflect the new values? Maybe or maybe not. So it's supposed to be doing this properly before the application is loaded up. So maybe it's something that needs to happen before the application is loading, because there's a way that the values are applied here on loading, and maybe the splitter is picking up the values from the position of the splitter too early. So maybe we can change that and try to apply the values earlier. So the splitter position is done in the loaded section. So maybe we can do that in another location. So let's see. Let's do it in the constructor for now. See if it changes something. And we're going to take a look at the logs and see if the position of the bars are making sense. Okay, so the position of the bars are different than before. So it may be that the position are exactly what we need. So we can see that we have the position changed and restored. Then let's see if we change the location of the bars to be something like this, and we restart the application. Do they get restored at the same location? So no, they're not. So it could be something else. So we had the position of the bars. That's some interesting values. So maybe they didn't get saved. It could be something like that. So let's see. If I move it here and I put it here. So there's a timer that saves the values after a few seconds. So I don't recall if we added that. So it doesn't look like there's a message that's associated with the save. So it may be that the values are not saved properly. So let's see. Yes, there's no message. So we can add that for now. So add some logging here. Saved splitter values. Okay. So just as a reminder, so the save timer tick is doing the saving of the values after a while, after 5 seconds. So maybe I closed the application too early. So let's see if that changes something. So the application is still being built. So as always, it's creating a small website. I had, if you're developing your application, you may disable the linker as well to get some faster load. Oh, we can see that the position has changed. So maybe this time it worked properly because the values were actually saved. So we can see here save splitter values. So we can see that it's actually saving too many times. So probably we need to stop the save at the right location. So let's move it to another location. So we're gonna get something like this and something like this. So the value is being saved after a few seconds. There it's saved. So if I refresh, do I get the right position now? Yes, I do. Okay, so the one thing to know then, it means that if we change the size of the grid after the UI has been loaded, then the control for the splitting is not picking up the values. Okay, so that's something that's interesting to know. So maybe 5 seconds is a bit too long because you may change the position and then restore the values, so not the right thing to do. So we can probably adjust that. So here we can see that we're saving the splitter values. What we can do is stop the timer. So because there's no need for that. So probably in the next few sessions, we're going to refactor all this and put that inside of a nicer view model, so that we don't need to just mix everything up with the UI and just use either some MVVM or other types of patterns to update the UI properly. And here, what we can do is in here, just to not save every time, we're going to stop the timer so that it doesn't refresh the values every time. So there it is. So now we have our positioning that's restored properly. So one of the things that is of interest is the fact that the grid splitter are not intercepting the values that are being changed. So if we take a look at the code from the Windows Community Toolkit, we can actually probably going to be seeing this. We search for grid splitter. There's probably something that does not hook onto the properties being changed. Yeah, exactly. So it's not hooking onto any value. So it's not meant to be saved or to be altered manually. So if you want to place it differently, you have to change the position, so you can see there's no event. There's no event specifically for that one that hooks onto grid row positions or others. So we can see the events here for the resizing, but it doesn't look like there's any kind of hooking onto the properties of the grid rows and columns manually. Okay, so that's good to know. So it may be something that need to be added afterwards to that control so that it behaves properly, but that's a good thing. So we can have the positioning of the splitter done properly and actually being saved after a few seconds. So I've saved the splitter value. So now if I refresh my application, the positioning of the bars, oh, not this time. That's interesting. Okay, so maybe it saved something else. So if I move this here, so it's supposed to be 300 and 900 something. So I've saved the value here. Oh no, it was stored. So it could have been something that was there that was not saved properly before. So as a reminder, the values are stored in the application storage. You can see those two values here. And when I change the position here, I think it's going to update right away. Yeah, it does update right away. So you can, oh, that's interesting. You can see it reverted back to the previous value. Oh, that's probably, that's very interesting. So it reverted back to the previous value. That's interesting. So it went to move the other one, so it's saved properly. So it looks like it was saved twice, but that would be, that's very interesting. So I don't think we have, it went back to 300. Oh, that's interesting. So it may be a bug inside of Uno then. So what this one does work, so let's go take a look. So the value is reverted to previous one. So it may be something that is done in Uno that doesn't do the right thing. So if I go to, so the API that we're using to get this running. So if we go back to Uno SkiaSharp Fiddle, we have here the storage. So if we go to restore splitter position, so we're using the API that's called application data.local setting current.local settings. So it's called application data container. So we're going to go and check for application data container inside of Uno. So there's a version of this that is specialized for WebAssembly. So if we go here, we get application data container webassembly.cs. And in that one, we're going to get a few things with values here, and getting values, updating values, adding values, and a few other things like that. So what I find interesting is that the value is being changed afterwards, which would indicate that something is updating them incorrectly. So either reloading the values or updating the values, or maybe it's because there's two apps running at the same time. That could be something interesting. Oh, there you have it. So that's not a problem. The problem is that I got the application running in the back, and you can see that I saved the splitter value. So the splitter value saving is behaving multiple times. So let's see. If I, so there's the values are shared between the sites. Okay, so that is the reason for this. So if I change the value here, we're gonna see after a few seconds that on this side it changes as well. There it is. Okay, so that explains quite a bit. So the application, the earlier application that I made was not stopping the timer. So it was saving the values every 5 seconds for no good reason. So now if I close this one, it will pick up the values properly. So if I change this and put it here, and I refresh, well, I refresh too quickly. So that's not going to pick it up. So if I do this and this, the value is going to get updated. There they are. I refresh again. Positioning is the right one. Okay, so that's good. So that's it. So we have the ability now to save the position of the handlebars here. So the position of the handlebars there. So it's quite interesting. So we know that we can save content inside of application data's local settings and get it back, but we have to put this, we have to restore the splitter position in either the constructor, or maybe in the loading. So we can try loading as well to see if that helps. So loading can be another one. So to do loading, there's multiple ways to do that. We can do it here. Loading. Nope, not renaming. Generate a method, and we're going to place the restore splitter position in the loading and see if that works properly. So the difference between those two is that this is called after the bindings, the X binds have been evaluated already. So that means that you can read all the values properly. But if you're doing it here, the X bind values are not evaluated. So it may be something that is a bit different. So let's see if the values are read properly. And it looks like it's too late because the handlebars have been placed already, because it should have been at a different location. So we need to put the restoring of the splitter position before the loaded. So inside directly after the initialized component. Otherwise it's too late. Okay. So that's pretty nice. So that's it. So that's for the saving and restoring. So it needs to be put. Okay, so there's that one. So now what we can add is something a little bit different. Let's say if we want to load an image inside of the Skia part. So the problem in this in the way it's built is that the samples are the samples are built in such a way that there's no initialization code that's available for the samples. So what we can do, actually, oh, I put loaded and not loading. So that's maybe the reason why it failed with loading. So we could probably change that back. Well, for next, we'll try for next one. So for the samples that we're running here, if we want to load, let's say, we want to load an image or something like that, then we need to be having an init method or something like that that is async, that the application can call for the loading to be done, and then we can get that and load the image and provide that to the paint method here. So let's try to find how we can load up an image. So to load an image, we can find this in SkiaSharp. There's some nice demos that are there. So if we go to samples, the gallery, we got the shared here with the samples, and there are a few with decoding and showing up images. So here there's a codec, the color wheel, probably not what we want here. There's probably another way to load an image. The blur image filter. Okay. So there's a SK manage stream, there's a decode, and then create blur. We can probably take that one. So that would be a good one. So we don't want to decode the image every time. So we may want to store the bitmap once, and then have that running every time. So what we can change is then first make the application. So I'm just gonna commit this. So it's deep link and splitter save. Okay, so in here I had the list of positions, and then we have the on paint surface, which is the paint method here that we can that we populate when compiling the application. And then instead of so we need actually to get two methods. So we're going to get the paint method, and we're going to also get an init method. So that init method is going to be named, so it's an init method. And that init method is going to be a Skia init handler. It's going to be returning a task. And we're going to use statics. We're going to use statics instead to store the values for now. Okay, so this is the initialization here. And so let's see. So we're async here. We've got the uncompile. And we're going to be calling the initialization here. So let's say instead of calling invalidate, we're going to be doing so it's going to be init sample init. Going to get a field for that, and then we're going to await that sample init here. Not null here, so it was not an init handler. It's an init handler here. So when we await this init method, so the type is not the right one because I auto created this, not at the right location. It's nullable. And we're awaiting the initialization. So now we're going to take the sample that was added to the SkiaSharp samples, and we're going to call it blur image. And that one is going to be so the same thing as the other one. So if we go back to the website, Skia, we're going to take that code, put it here, take the canvas, and then instead of the managed stream that we're putting here, we're going to be decoding the image only once. So you can see here that we're drawing the bitmap that was provided here with the blur that was created here, and we're using the paint that was the paint that has the filter that's defined as the blur. So what we want is to move this away and add that inside of a method that's async, that can download something from the web. So we're going to be putting an async task, and it's called init. And we're going to make two, actually, it's going to be just one. So it's going to be a bitmap. I'm going to make a static bitmap. My bitmap. And then instead, we're going to put this here. So the bitmap is not going to be released, at least not until we get the sample figured out. Probably going to have to add a dispose, probably dispose method, so that we can release that properly. Otherwise, it's going to be the garbage collector that's going to pass, and because it's a reference that's very small, that's referencing something that's very large in the runtime, then it will take a while to get released. Okay, so the managed stream is taking a stream at the end. So what we can do is just use an HTTP client and try to download an image from that. So we're just going to do something very small. Just going to use an HTTP client. And we're going to do get stream async, and we're going to take an URL. I don't know which one we could take. Let's go. I don't know if the Google Doodles do that. I think the URLs are generally pretty stable, so we can probably just use that one. Well, let's take that one. It looks nice for now. So we're gonna copy the image link and see if we can display that image. So we're awaiting this, and it's returning a stream. We're going to be using, so it's going to be image stream. And we're going to put that image stream here. So I don't know if the version of C# that I'm using here is providing C# 9. We'll see if that, or 8. So we'll see where that goes, and we can see if that compiles. Okay, so we got the image here. And then, so the paint, so the program here is probably not the right one. So sample one, we're going to call it something else. We're going to call it blur image instead of sample one, blur image. And then the bitmap here needs to be used here. And we're going to see if that behaves properly. So the image should be loaded up, decoded into the bitmap here, and then provided here as the rest of the image. So let's see what that does. And the application probably still being debugged here. Can probably stop this. Okay, so succeeded. So let's see. So I have my blur image that's available. It's the first one, so it's taken as the direct one. So if I compile this, what happens? Nothing. Okay, so that's probably something else that happened. There's probably another type of exception that happened. Okay, so draw bitmap. So it actually ran, but it looks like the value cannot be null for parameter bitmap. So draw bitmap. So it means that the init method was not called. So that's probably the reason for this. Or it was, but it failed for another reason. So draw here. Create delegate because the target is not compatible with its target type. The delegate, okay, so the delegate type is not the right one. So that's probably one good reason for that to fail. Okay, so I used a task init. It's not static, so that could be a good reason. So I could probably change that right away instead in here. So it's still not working. So let's see if there's something else that we need to do. So bitmap invalidate. So in here does fail to fetch. Okay, so okay, so that's a CORS issue. So the image cannot be fetched via CORS. So we need to have something else. If I remember correctly, there are sample images. There are CORS enable. I never remember the name of those. So there's kind of a new small generator sample generator. There was a site that was doing that. Do you remember one? I think Cal was knew about one that was a generator, an image generator that was sample image generator file guru. That's a sample one. Dummy image. Maybe that one could do. Okay, maybe not dummy image specifically. Okay, let's try with that one. So I'm gonna get a JPEG. Hello. And does it make an URL that we can get? I don't know. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so let's take that one and see if that one is CORS enabled. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. So that's that one. If we change that up top in here, because we have a compiler, so we can change that directly. If we compile, do we have something? Okay, so got the main method, cannot be null. So was the image fetched? Yes, it was. Okay, so we got an hello. Okay, so that's good. But it was not updated properly. So why would that be? So it says the draw bitmap is null. Okay, so that would be something else. So if that was, so we can do that because we have console.writeLine that works as well here. So downloaded. Let's see. We run the application again. Okay, so let's clear a little bit. There's a bit too much here. Okay, console. Sorry, I didn't see. So there's something that's missing, of course. It's using system. Okay. So still null. Did we get downloaded? We get downloaded, but the problem is that the draw bitmap happened too early. Okay, so it actually got updated. So maybe there we go. So we actually we drew too early. So we could probably just put an if there. So if my bitmap is not null. Oof. Then we draw something. Otherwise, we don't draw anything. So it's going to be white. Then let's put it red for now. So if we do compile, then it gets red. And then if we refresh, then we get the hello. Okay, so it got updated. And we can see that it's blurred. We could probably put it more blurred than that. I don't know what that one does. So let's see. Yeah, it's a lot more blurry. So that's pretty cool. So we can see that it's blurring with the background a lot. So there's some kind of a reddish blur that we can see on the sides. So it gives us an idea of that. So there it is. So there you have it. We can have an initialization that stores the value here, and that needs to update there. So probably what we can do here is do an update. So I think we're updating too early in the app. We're invalidating, so we're actually calling the initialization after the paint. So that's not useful. So let's do it. Let's do it in reverse. So let's do it again. Then if we compile this one, we get the hello. Very nice. So we get the ability to download images and manipulate them here, and get our code running completely there without having to. We actually do execute something in here that does more complex operations and get the result displayed here. So one last thing that is actually needed is to make sure that when we're clearing up that sample, that we're releasing the native content here. So in general, the runtime is doing it properly. It's calling the garbage collector, and it's going to collect this, but we can ensure that this is getting released properly. So we're actually disposing this. So one way to do this is to add one more method. It's going to be called let's call it dispose. I'm going to call it dispose method. I'm going to call it sample dispose. It's a Skia dispose handler. I'm going to create that at the top for now and move that away. So this one doesn't need to be async, so we can put it that way directly. Same thing, it's going to be a field that is going to be placed at the wrong spot. And finally, what we need to do is to make sure that we're not calling this right away, but if we're calling uncompile, we're going to be releasing actually we could probably just do this, but no, we need to be doing some logging a little bit before. So we're going to be calling sample dispose here and just write on the console for now. We're going to dispose the sample resources so we get something that looks right. So if we refresh all this, then we're going to get our handler updated with not a sample updated with the dispose, and we're going to check that it actually does what it's supposed to do. So we got initialization, dispose, and the main method that does the drawing. So the paint method, so it's not the main method. And so it's going to be a static method that is called dispose. And we're going to be calling my bitmap. Not invoke, dispose, sorry. There we go. So if I compile this, I would get the image showing up after a few seconds if it works properly and I have not broken anything. Okay, so it doesn't work because this is not, probably should be enhancing the so dispose warning, this method lacks a wait. That's true. It doesn't need to be a wait, the async. Okay, so this worked properly. So now let's see if I got really the disposing called properly. So here, disposing sample resources. Okay, so that means that the stream that was created in the call before here, you know, the previous initialization was actually removed properly, so the memory is reclaimed and can be reused afterwards. So we don't leak if we are launching the sample too many times. Nice. Okay, so I'm just going to put that back into the sample here. I want to try something else. Let's see. I don't know which version of C# is available here. So if I do this, what does it? Notation. The annotation for nullable reference type should not be used. It should only be used with a nullable annotation context. So if I put nullable at the top, what does it say? It works. Wow, that's cool. Okay, so I get nullable annotations as well. So this is probably using I'm using a very recent version of the compiler that does support nullable references as well. So that means that you get nullable references for free when doing this. So that's pretty nice. Okay, so that's it for today. We got that application moving forward quite a bit with a few additional things, and I got some homework to do with the content dialog error message that was not supposed to happen here. So we'll see what that happens then. So there you go. So I hope I'll see you next week with some more live coding on the Uno platform. Until then, have a great week. Bye-bye.